MBI.com. This is Jonas Reports for the 30th of April. We're going to end the month pretty nice overall when you think about it. For the start of April, it has been nothing but green, green, green during the whole war escalation. And yeah, record oil prices, the whole 9 yards. The Fed chairman gave his last appearance. But from a reading standpoint, it's just right there. All you do is look at that MBI weight, and you can see shorts aren't doing this. This is all just a question of, do buyers maintain themselves or do they lapse? And, in this particular case, we've had some reasonable movement. It's just not multi-directional. It's all just been one way solid up, which is fine because March was one way solid pretty much all the way down. So it's just a counter move, but you are at new highs, and everyone's got to be asking the question: new highs based on what? Well, yeah, devaluation of the dollar, not necessarily, the great performance from all of your, Mag 7 stocks or whatever. But they all reported great numbers and everything, but they also reported that their AI dream is problematic. You got Meta spending tons of money on infrastructure and that, but then you also see that the demand rise is not quite keeping up. It's exactly what we saw, happen with the whole WorldCom and that, back when they all wanted to do, fiber optic and that. And they were just ahead of where demand was. And so you could see some people getting a little nervous on the whole AI trade. So we'll keep an eye on that one, because that's where you'll see the Nasdaq will act divergent a little bit to the S&P. But you can see cyan under red, green over cyan, and green over red on the DOC. So, and not to mention orange below green. Even though you're already at the above the zero level, it's like there's nothing ugly about any of that. Now, of course, you have the unknown. The whole talk about maybe using hypersonic weapons or whatever for Iran or whatever. It's all just nonsense talk. It's been to scare the Iranians, but what should scare everyone else is this. Oil back at the top numbers. They keep talking about, the top off of oil and that for Iran, and they're going to shut wells, and what a disaster that will be. It all has a lot of assumptions, and fine. The bigger shock was UAE stepping out of OPEC. Doesn't have implications right now, but eventually, if things do open up in the Strait, yeah, that's an interesting one, because that would definitely cause oil prices to plummet if they're going to dump an extra few million barrels a day outside of OPEC. That starts to break down that whole scenario, and that's an interesting one in and of itself. So, yeah, there are a lot of other hidden dynamics going on, but that doesn't change where we are right now, which is the fact that oil's not flowing out of the Strait. It's a bigger problem for the rest of the world than the U.S. And of course, in the U.S., they're talking about how the strategic petroleum, they've taken so much. No, there's still plenty in there. And you'd be a fool not to. The deal they set up was an arbitrage where you get to take it now and you don't have to pay for it. You just have to replace it later. Well, yeah, if I'm a refiner or anything, I want that deal, because I'm just going to arbitrage and wait until prices come down and then pay it back at the lower rate. It's a perfect short cover situation. That's a dream come true if you're in oil, because you've got no risk unless oil goes to 200. But even then, it just depends on how long you have. It's an options contract, essentially. You're just going to replace it at some point, and if you have your own drilling capability, then it's not even an issue. It just becomes an opportunity cost. This is why you should expect great numbers from oil companies. Euro's still bouncing back and forth. Their whole story. I think everything about the EU setup is, all you have to do is look at Spain. They've offered asylum to every immigrant, and they're all rushing to go there, because once they get their approval, they can go anywhere in the EU, and it's a backdoor way to continue the migrant immigration, because the European Union is dead without more people, because they convinced everyone it's a bad idea to have children, and this is what you get. 20 years later, you don't have enough replacement population. That's plain and simple. Fine. They keep saying it's a net positive, but no, it's not. Even in the U.S., they did all the statistical numbers, illegal immigration, and that it really is a net drain overall. But the idea is that in generations from now, you support economic growth and the ability of the society to help pay for other older retirees later on. So gold, yeah, turnaround move from it here, and it's going to continue. I would expect new highs for gold, not too far down the road. I mean, it's held up for now, but that's fine. Same thing with Bitcoin. The U.S. now claiming that they're seizing some crypto of, or blocking Iran's ability to get it. And it's like that begs the question that this was be all independent, and nobody could touch. But it's always interesting when they talk about seized coins and things like that. Of course, they recovered them from passwords and stuff, but it's an open ledger, so everybody knows the transactions. Fines not centralized control, but it's still public. But from that standpoint, still modest. It's only in the mid 70s, still half of what it was, or just a little bit over half of what it was. So from a 50K standpoint, you can see this is what happens with earnings, boom, all the way back down, retested the lows, back up. So yeah, that's where we're above 50% positive. We got MBI weight rising with it, so some people are not convinced that this should continue. Um, there weren't horrible reports from anybody. There's nothing new under the sun. The bigger changes taking place at the Fed, and Powell's going to hold on and stay as a governor despite not being chairman, just so he can thwart Trump. Because if Trump gets to appoint another person, then he would have a majority view on that, and he certainly doesn't want that because he's sworn to be a thorn in the side of Trump. So, yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of them just aren't agreeing on each other, and I think they've started to realize that the model that they've selected, in a lot of cases, they get most things right, but at the periphery they don't, and that's a problem. So that is the long and the short of it for now. Anything relevant, I'll put on the team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.